Hello, everyone. Welcome to Meaghan Chitwood Live, powered by BNI. In this episode, we are talking to Michael Luna with Blue Rain Express 3-minute car wash in Birmingham, Alabama. He and his business partners set to build the best car washing experience possible. They scrutinize everything from aesthetics of the building to environmentally friendly chemicals to reclaiming and recycling water to deliver the best car wash experience ever. He and his brother-in-law were business partners. He introduced Michael to BNI, and he thought it was going to be a great way for him to really learn how to run his business. And now he gets to understand. He now feels like he understands how to relate to business owners better, which is completely shocking because of who he is and how he presents himself. So enough for me. Let's get started. So this show is all about sharing stories of BNI heroes. These are everyday business owners who are working as a team to increase their sales and grow each other's businesses. You can catch us every Friday at 10 a.m. Central, coming to you live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. And then you can also catch the recordings on LinkedIn as well. So go subscribe so that you can catch us each and every week. And I want to welcome Michael to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you for having me.
This is going to be I wanted you on the show from the moment that you facilitated a chapter meeting that I visited recently, because it was one of the best chapter meetings I had ever been to. It was love songs because it was the week of Valentine's Day. And I just tell everyone, not only did everyone do love songs in their presentations, but Michael also worked love songs in to every transition, which was just unbelievably impressive as a facilitator of a meeting. So I needed to have you on the show for sure to talk about your business.
Yeah. Thank you. I guess I'm proof that class clowns have a future at some point. So
absolutely. I was kidding around because I was a type A student kind of thing. And then my dad mentioned to me, he wanted me to be an A student, but he did give me the reality checks of C students rule the world. So class clowns too. Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah.
So let's talk about, I want to start by talking about kind of where you got started, because you have a background in youth ministry as well as Starbucks was another one of your formational experiences that you had. So talk about how those experiences kind of led you to becoming an entrepreneur.
Well, I suppose it starts with having an undergraduate degree in theater and moving to New York. And I had an internship and it was good. And yet I needed to make ends meet. And so I started working at Starbucks. And I worked for Starbucks for almost 10 years and kind of rose up through the ranks. And then along the way, I felt a calling in the ministry, so I went to seminary and then became first a college and singles pastor and then a youth pastor. And then at some point in there, I got married, moved to Alabama, had kids, and that's been fantastic. So.
Excellent. So Starbucks was one of the things you really learned a lot about customer service when you were there. When I learned that about you, I was like, oh my gosh, that would be amazing experience, because they're brilliant at that.
They are. They're brilliant at training. I think they're really good at customer service. I think they're really good at explaining who they are and what it is that they do. When you go to work at Starbucks, you don't just learn about coffee, you learn about the clean water programs they have going on in the third world. You learn about how they build schools on their coffee plantations. You learn about how they they actually buy above what's called fair trade price. So that's kind of fair trade is kind of a standard that's set around the world. They buy coffee above that rate because they really feel that it's important to take care of the people who are growing the product. So yeah, they're really good at a lot of things.
So how did that experience help you now as you have car washes, right? You have a couple of car washes in Birmingham.
Yeah. So Starbucks is process oriented, and they're very good at explaining that process. And if you ever walk into a Starbucks, they have everyone set in a position, and it's kind of drilled into you when you go there. Okay, when you stand here, these are your tasks you're expected to do. But when you move over here, and one of the things that I picked up from them is they want everybody to understand everything, right? So if you're not just a cashier, you're not just a barista, you don't just work drive-through, you don't, you're not just a supervisor, whatever. You have to be able to rotate through all those positions, so that if you are like the store manager, you're still expected to take the trash out and clean the dumpster. Those kinds of things. So. And that's one of the philosophies that I brought into the car wash is I didn't want, even now when we do detailing and all that kind of stuff, I want every single person who comes to work for us to understand every single position. So it gives us a lot of flexibility and things like that.
And then also just where are you and what are your responsibilities and how you work into the flow. When you're talking about that, I have my engineering background and some manufacturing flow concepts. Yeah, it's just everybody will understand kind of what their job is.
Yeah, I all through high school and in college and stuff, I had a job. I worked in restaurants, waiting tables, and at times I was a cook. And that's interesting because in the restaurant industry, it's a very front of the house, back of the house mentality. Like we want you to learn this. Well, we don't really, you don't really learn about whatever, what the cooks are doing or what the hosts are doing or that kind of thing if you're a waiter, and vice versa. If you cook, you don't really know what waiters are doing and that kind of stuff. And so, and I think a lot of businesses and workplaces are like that. Like we just want you to know these few tasks, right? And it's better to have a picture of everything that's going on.
Well, and using the restaurant example, because then you're going to know, can you actually take the onions out of the thing, or are the onions in the sauce, right? And not having that understanding can probably lead to some conflict. So
yes, I detect that perhaps you went to a restaurant once and didn't get onions taken out when you wanted them taken out.
No, I just remember them having to go. I remember somebody asked to be taken out, and I think it was an allergy. It wasn't mine, but it was somebody else's. And then, they had to go back and ask, right? But if they'd have known enough about the back end of the kitchen, they wouldn't have had to ask and be like, oh no, that's already baked in. Sorry, we can't do that. And those kinds of things. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. So take me to kind of, you've said this is a boring story, but it's not. What about sitting down with your business partners and saying, we're going to start a car wash? Talk about how that came to fruition.
So when I was a youth pastor, I had this feeling that a change was coming, and so I didn't know what that change was going to be. And so I thought, well, maybe I'm supposed to go to law school. Maybe I'm supposed to become a senior pastor, whatever. And so I started looking around, and I applied to go get a doctorate and that kind of stuff. And so and my business partners are my brother-in-law and father-in-law. And my father-in-law and I have a really good relationship, and I looked to him for counsel and guidance on a lot of things. And so he knew this was going on. Right around that time, he was looking at starting a new business. He has some rental property. He has some warehouses. He had a car dealership at the time, and so someone presented to him the idea of owning a car wash. Well, that would be a good thing. It's still in cars, like a car dealership, but as opposed to dealing with sort of just a few transactions per day that are, in high value, a car wash is the opposite. It's a lot of transactions, not a lot of high value for each transaction. So he really liked that diversification of it. And when he originally presented the idea to me, he said, well, this is just going to be an investment, but, we're looking for somebody to run it. And I was like, okay. And he said, and if I know you're thinking about what to do, and no pressure. And so, but it just sort of dawned on me that I think this is what I'm supposed to do. And so so, the rest is history, so to speak.
So how was it transitioning from being a part of a bigger organization to being your own boss and being kind of the owner, seeing you're the operator and the CEO of an organization?
Wow. It was like drinking from a fire hose, right? Because I think there are a lot of things when you're part of a larger organization that you just take for granted, that, for example, all the charts on the wall, all the sort of little processes, all the things that you go through when you hire somebody, all the pay, somebody's responsible for all those things. And Starbucks obviously didn't grow up overnight. I think when I went to work for them, that was in the early 2000s, and I believe that Howard Schultz purchased Starbucks in the early 80s. So I mean, it took a long time to get to that point, and I certainly understand that. So that was one thing. Sort of day one, thinking, okay, do this, and they're like, well, how do we do it? I'm like, oh yeah, I have to have the training material to show you how to do it. So there was definitely that aspect of it,
Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah. But I think there's an incredible energy, not that owning your own business, not that you don't get, fatigued, and not that that there aren't hard days or that kind of thing, but you just wake up every day wanting to get after it, and it's so different than having a job because it's yours, my name's not Blue Rain, but in a way it is, like that my name's on the door, so to speak. So you just care about it a lot more. You want to be there a lot more. It's a definite fight sometimes because I probably spend too much time here sometimes, so yeah.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So talk to us about what led you to joining BNI and kind of what were you looking for and what questions were you asking when you decided to look into BNI?
Okay. All right. So, so my brother-in-law, my other business partner, also incredibly wise, and we do have kind of a, older brother, younger brother kind of relationship. And so generally speaking, he doesn't ask necessarily like a lot from me, but he was like, I really think you need to do this. I think it's going to help you. And I think what he saw in me at the time was that I was process oriented, right? Like I was very much like, okay, employees need to do this. Chemistry needs to do this. The machines need to be doing, that. And I was caring about that aspect of it, but getting out, talking to customers, that kind of stuff, I wasn't as maybe focused on that as I needed to be. And so he's like, this is really going to help you. You're going to learn from other people. And I was like, really? And it's like, okay. And then I went to the first meeting and I loved it. I thought it was just amazing, and so and I don't know that he was expecting it, but literally, I think he thought I would go to a meeting and then we'd have to revisit it. But as soon as I got done with that meeting, he was like, so what'd you think? I was like, I'm joining. He's like, really? And I was like, yeah, let's do it. So
I'm one that kind of, I had that exact same experience when I visited my BNI chapter the first time to become a member. It was like, I just got it, right? And you seem to be, you get the process of it, and then you are looking for the people element. And I just feel like the marriage of that in BNI is just so perfect.
It really is. I got to be education coordinator a few years ago, and when you are the education coordinator, obviously it's your job to sort of mine the field of everything that's out there, and there's a huge amount of information. And BNI University, right? You had a little bit of something to do with that, right?
Just a tiny little bit. Just a little bit, yeah.
And so when you do that, you get to see everything that's out there, but you get to understand as well that, yeah, I might know a lot about my field, but I don't really know anything about networking. And Ivan Meisner and the whole BNI group, like, they've really put a lot of thought into organizational structure, into how you do things, and little things, right? Like the open circle thing, right? Like when you're talking to people, you leave it open so you can allow people to come in. That's just one of those things that, oh yeah, I never would have thought about. You have that thing about whenever you go to a new meeting and you don't know anyone, act like a host, right? That's an important concept.
Which can be scary as can be, especially if you know no one.
Yeah.
But just, that's when fake it till you make it really works, and just like, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. So tell me kind of what did your business look like before BNI? Like, how you were process driven, all of those kinds of things. Now, what does it look like now? Like, how do you think it has changed you as a business person?
Well, number one, I do make it a point now to go out and just every day, as much as I can, walk around and just really just have conversations with people. I make it a point to try to, I don't succeed in this always, but to talk to my employees and put more into why is it that we're selling this product? What is it that's doing? What is it that sets us apart? Those kinds of things that if somebody asks, well, why do you do it this way? Be able to explain those kinds of things. So I think that's certainly different. I think I'm also more responsive, both to when people approach us about doing a fleet account, for example. That's something that I handle that a lot differently now than I used to, and that's all because of BNI.
So how did you handle it before, and how do you handle it now?
So I think that before I would have just sent them an email, right? And now I try to do more like I'm going to call. I'm going to send you the email. I'm going to follow up with a phone call. If I don't hear from you in a few days, I'm going to touch base with you again. Even after we start, we're going to talk, that kind of stuff. So you just try to be a little bit more hands-on, and you try to, I think, also understand that in my world, I know everything that's going on in my world, but when somebody comes into this world, they may not know it, right? So when somebody comes to our car wash for the first time or even the 10th time, they don't necessarily know what everything is supposed to be. And the same with people that have fleet accounts with us or whatever. Just making sure that we're doing a good job, that they understand the process, that all their questions are answered, and that if there is something that we're lacking somehow, then let's go ahead and figure out what that is and figure out how to make it better.
So the two things that I really heard from that is, when BNI, we one of our core values, right, is building relationships. So having a relationship, again, that transactional, when it's a transactional, I'm going to send you an email. Most of the time you're going to be competing on price, right?
Yeah.
Whereas if they go, oh my gosh, I really like Michael, and he's a little higher, but I really like Michael. So that's what we're going to do. And that's that relational piece.
It is. And actually there was one more thing that you were saying that also that I thought about this a couple of times now recently, when I've been talking to that person. And I say, in the last, since BNI, but really in the last few years, I've gotten better about this, about listening and asking them more about like who they are and what are they about and that kind of stuff. And then seeing if there is maybe an issue that they're having or a problem that somebody else that I know can solve, or that they might be able to use. If for example, I recently we had a guy that they sell printers and that kind of stuff. And so I know you had Sumta on a few weeks ago. So next time she has an issue, with a printer, we're like, hey, listen, I know a guy that sells them now in services, and he does like a lot of the stuff that you're working with. Maybe this is who you need to talk to. So I think making those connections and keeping those in mind is something else that BNI helps you with.
Well, and so we've got a new book out called The Connector Effect, and literally in the first chapter, it is about it's a fictitious story, but it illustrates brilliantly. Guy comes in for a sales call, person's on the phone, waves him in, has him sit down in the office, is on a phone call talking about her dad and how they're trying to get him settled because he had a health issue, all this kind of stuff, right? So now she's ready to have her listen to his sales presentation, and instead of pitching, he goes into how he can help her solve the problem with her dad because he knows all these people. And then at the very end, she goes, "Okay, well, you've got like 8 minutes. What did we really need to talk about, right?" Yeah. And he just walked out. The whole, like I said, the story. He walks out and goes like, "Oh my God, I just blew it. Like I didn't even get a chance to talk about my business." But and then the call happens of like, "You were so helpful. We want you to come in and really present your whole business to us." And it was just kind of an interesting, like, I think that could actually happen. I mean, that was a fictitious story, but just being of value to them beyond the normal thing. One, it makes you feel great about yourself, right? Because even if we couldn't do business, somebody's getting helped as a result of it as well. Yeah. And then the other thing, so the relational piece, but also just the accountability, right? Now you're thinking in terms of, I remember going to a car wash recently. I live in Huntsville, so it wasn't yours. I did drive out of my way to go to yours, by the way, just for the record.
Okay.
Yeah. So that was 2 weeks ago. I literally was on the other side of town. I was like, Blue Rain, where am I going? But I did. But I remember.
Wait. How much did you spend? I'll give you thank you for closed business.
I'll send it to you. I will send it to you. But I remember being asked, like, are you satisfied with, as I'm, vacuuming, because I decided to do that myself because I had some time, and, was everything satisfactory? And I'm like, whoa, like I'm not expecting that. So it's kind of that accountability of like, is everything okay? Because I can fix it. I think there's another thing we learn in B&I, you can always fix it. And then when you fix it, they usually come back more loyal than they were before as well. Yeah. Excellent. So what if someone else, because car washes are very, very unique, so everybody in Birmingham, look for Blue Rain. They have monthly plans and all that kind of stuff, fleet plans that people can use, especially if you're in the Pelham and down 280. If somebody outside of our region was looking at joining as a car wash, what advice would you give them, being in your industry and coming into B&I? Because this one is a really unique one.
Sure. So I would say that in terms of why you should join B&I, I think that B&I, number one, that weekly discipline of having to give that presentation. In my chapter, it's 60 seconds, but I know it's 45 and 30 in some other chapters, where you have to talk about your who you are, and what particular service or maybe somebody that you help. That weekly discipline helps you think about your business and forces you to think about it in a much different way. Because, quite frankly, you need material, right? And so then when you're walking around, like when I'm talking to customers or whatever, I stop sometimes to think about it. I was like, well, when I'm, I've just talked with this person, that was an interesting story or that kind of a thing. And so you go back and you jot that down, but it makes you think about that person as well. So it does make you more customer focused because you have to do that weekly presentation. It also helps you train your employees because you want to make sure that services you're talking about are good and provided and they add value to what the customer's experience. So that it makes you a better trainer for your employees. I think as well, it makes you, it kind of pulls you out of your head and makes you less selfish because you want to make sure that you have a referral every week. And so when I'm talking to people, I am trying to listen to maybe what issues they might have. I just had a customer while she was, doing her transaction with me. She was on the phone complaining about her grass and an issue. And well, Mr. Bugs, they do lawn care. They do my lawn care. They're in my group. And so I was able to say, hey, listen, this is who I use. I'm ashamed to say I don't really work on my yard, and it looks really good. It's because Mr. Bugs does it. Would you like me? So it makes you listen to people better, and it adds value both to the people in your room and to the customers that you deal with. Because, like you brought up, you're not just in it for yourself anymore, right? You are trying to improve the business and the life of those in your group, as well as solve problems for people that you meet. So yeah, I think if somebody were to ask me, why would I want to spend X amount of time every week having to stand up and get ready for this presentation, having to go to the meetings, why do I want to meet with people outside? It seems like you're pulling me away from my business. I'm like, well, no, you're really, it's training you how to be better at your business. It's like that story about the lumberjack who goes into the woods, right? And the first tree he cuts down in an hour, and then the second tree it takes him 2 hours, and then the third tree it takes him 3 hours or whatever. And at the end of the day, he's exhausted, and he's talking to this older lumberjack, and he says, well, it just kept taking me longer and longer to chop those trees down. And the older lumberjack said, well, when did you sharpen your axe, or how often are you sharpening your axe? And he's like, oh, I didn't have time to do that. Right?
Yeah.
So I think it's sharpening your axe, right? That's what BNI is about.
Absolutely. So one of the things that I found very fascinating by doing these interviews on a weekly basis is, pretty much like none of you have brought up money, like receiving money.
Yeah.
But I think that's our initial value proposition. Or do you think our initial value proposition is more of sharpening the saw? Because in your case, it wasn't, hey, I need to get more business. It was filling me out more as a business person was what, was what the business partner talked to you about. Yeah. But where do you think the money falls into all of this? Which I know is a hard question that I didn't prepare you for.
No, that's fine. I don't, it's interesting because for my industry, in one sense, I don't need BNI to succeed, right? Like, BNI is such a small percentage. If you look into, the number of transactions that we're doing every year, the revenue we generate, the travel agent in our group, for example, I think like 50 or 60% of her business comes through BNI, and probably 1 or 2%, I think, of my business comes through BNI. So in that sense, maybe you might say, well, is it really worth it? Now, I will say that really within 2 months of any given year, in terms of just subscriptions from current BNI members, past BNI members, as well as fleet business that has come through BNI, I more than pay for my yearly fee. So it pays for itself, right? So the monetary thing maybe is not been as big of an issue for me, but yeah, I guess it really was more the value of what it could do. Now, that being said, can you make money in BNI? Yes, you can make money in BNI. And yes, there are certain businesses for whom I don't understand how you could make it without BNI,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was really curious about, it's great to hear that it definitely is worth it and it brings in the value that it does. And then I would just recommend focus on more of the fleets. If you can get more fleets, we can multiply that even, multiply that even further. But very, very interesting. Well, we're coming to the end. Anything else that we've not covered that you feel like the audience needs to know about you or your business?
Well, some of the technical things. We're only we're the only dual belted conveyor system in the state of Alabama. We can wash all kinds of vehicles. There's all that kind of stuff. I love the
capture and reclaiming of the water. My mother is a full-on hippie from California and would be so proud to do business with you for that reason.
Yeah. That's we do pride ourselves on that. And I will say this. We're not, and this is again where BNI helps you and things like that. we're not the only car wash that does that. There are several other car washes that do that. They just don't talk about it. You know, now there are some that don't, and I know some that, like, why would you want to even mess around with reclaim, and isn't it difficult? Yeah, it's a headache and all that, and it's difficult, but it's definitely worthwhile. So yes, but the answer to your question, or the question you didn't ask, is how is it that BNI helps you? It helps you because you do learn to talk about those kinds of things.
All right, excellent. Well, thank you, Michael.
Okay.
Thank you, Michael, so much for being with us this week. I appreciate it so much. And if you are in the Birmingham area, definitely check out Blue Rain for sure. All right, so next week, I am super duper pumped. Okay, so we're going outside of BNI, Alabama for this one. Patrick O'Connor is going to be with us. He is the #1 Coldwell Banker agent in his area. He is in Columbia, South Carolina. And what we are going to be talking about is how, one, he became the #2 real estate agent in his area, period, as well as how BNI helps him as a realtor save time. And I am so excited about this one. All of the real estate agents are going to want to listen in for this one for sure. Absolutely. So with that, have a great week, and I look forward to seeing you next week.